Hey everybody, and welcome back to Fresh Set. I'm Sabrina.
And I'm Kevin.
And it was an exciting Monaco Grand
Oh, I
Prix.
can't wait to talk about every single detail
It was
of this
so
weekend.
exciting.
Can't wait. Can't
The
wait.
best Monaco Grand Prix ever in the history of Monaco Grand Prix. And I'm kidding.
Of course. I will say, so, my son had baseball all week, a baseball tournament, so I didn't get to see any of it. I didn't keep up with anything this week. I would catch up after the games and whatever.
Yeah.
And my plan was yesterday, after we had 3 games, to get home, watch it, and obviously catch up so we can do this. I turned it on, and I was already exhausted for the weekend, and I missed everything. I fell asleep. I woke up. It was lap 12. I'm like, God, okay, we're gonna have to do this tomorrow, and I'm gonna watch it tomorrow. So first thing I did when I got up, after I made my coffee and whatever, I put it on, and I should have just stayed asleep. I could have just missed it. I could have asked ChatGPT what happened.
Yeah, and
your
dream of it would have been probably more exciting
Yeah.
than what happened.
100%.
But yeah, I mean, it was a Monaco Grand Prix. We never really expect, a phenomenal change or a phenomenal race. There were some changes, but before we get into all of that, just want to remind you to follow us on social media at Fresh Set Podcast, and wherever you find your podcast, and on YouTube also at Fresh Set Podcast. So follow, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But yeah, Monaco. There was 2 before going into the weekend, and we knew this, I think, last year or beginning of this season, about the change for the tires.
Yes, it was earlier this year.
Yeah. That they were now doing a mandatory 2 pit stop race.
Yeah, you had to use 3 separate set of tires. So you could use two of the same compound, whatever, but they had to be 3 separate sets of tires. So you had to come in for a tire change.
Yeah. And if you don't know, each race is set up in a different way, that they have a mandatory number of pit stops. Some are 1, some are 2.
I think that's the only one that's 1, isn't it? Or only one that's 2. I believe it's the only one that's 2. I think everything else is a mandatory 1 using 2 different compounds.
Yeah, I think so.
It's just that some tracks are longer, so you're going to have a second one.
Right, yeah. Whatever. So this was new for Monaco. We knew it was kind of,
gimmicky?
trying to drum up drama, trying to drum up, yellow flags, crashes, pit lane issues, which it didn't really do any of that. It drummed up strategy, though.
Yeah. And basically it was just a strategy game, and rather than a racing game.
Yeah, because there was no pit lane issues. There was no nobody cutting anybody off.
Yeah, making 2 stops mandatory with more pit stops, you're likely going to have some kind of impeding or was it unsafe release or something like that?
Yeah,
nothing.
None of that.
No, none of that.
Really down to strategy. But before go ahead.
I was just gonna say that came down to the strategy of other drivers on track, which really negated a lot of what other teams were thinking of doing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, teams were no longer even looking at their own strategy. They were, like you said, watching strategy from another driver or another team to figure out their strategy. You could go in, but if you didn't have the place, your strategy's out the window. You just got to go with with what's there. Because again, there's not really any overtaking unless someone lets you pass, which there were 1 or 2 scenarios like that, because people had to give positions back or switch,
or not at all. But
there
were 2 specific teams that really just threw everybody else's strategy in a blender, and really made it. I wasn't excited for this race because it was going to be a strategy race, and these 2 teams, I mean, rightfully so, they did what they did for their points. You know,
Yeah.
I'll give him that.
Yeah.
But it really made the whole strategy race angle just a lot worse, just a lot
Yeah.
more unbearable for me personally. You
Yeah.
thought it was okay.
I didn't mind the strategy,
I get the strategy.
but
I'm not disparaging the strategy, but when you
yeah,
listen to one of the team principals, he's like, "This is not what I like to do, but it's what I got to do to
it's
get
what I got to
points."
do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll give
Yeah.
it to him.
Yeah. So, I mean, before we get to the race, which we've kind of started talking about a little bit, we can go back to free practice. And I know we've mentioned before that you're not always paying attention to free practice. There's not a lot going on. All 3 sessions of free practice, there was
Had
something going
something. Yeah.
on this
Well, it's the
weekend.
only time that you actually go flat out
Yeah.
in Monaco is free
Right.
practice in quali.
Yeah. Or if you just live there and, have a fancy car and you can go flat out whenever
There's
you
way too
want.
many people to do that.
So FP1, we have Charles with a rear-ending Lance Stroll,
Yeah,
but Lance Stroll
but
cut him off.
Stroll goes back
So
into the racing line. I mean, he has that blue flag to let I forget who was in front of him go by, but he
yeah,
sees a blue flag, and there was apparently there was GPS and radio issues all weekend. So
yeah,
Stroll heard he might have heard that one person was going through. Maybe he didn't hear that Charles was coming back and was in that I forget what that turn section there is,
the
what it's
hairpin.
called. Yeah, that hairpin turn.
Yeah,
And so he goes back on his race line to make the turn. Otherwise, his car can't
yeah,
make that turn. And Charles coming with some speed, and even Charles said from the beginning, I don't think he saw me.
yeah.
So it was kind of I wouldn't it's not no harm, no foul, but it wasn't intentional, malicious.
No, it was just.
It
I
just
mean,
sucked.
he rear-ended him, and Charles totally lost his front wing.
Oh yeah, just gone.
Which was like buried underneath the car, and he was driving with it still. But so that was a red flag. FP2, we had both Ferraris in the top three.
Yep.
We'll say that. Oscar crashes with a lockup, which is very rare for him, and I was kind of. I mean, it happens that
He locks up, but it's like he doesn't realize if he doesn't know if he's gonna try to make that corner or if he
Yeah.
can, or if he's gonna go in the runoff. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
locking up, just go to the runoff. It just
Yeah.
don't even try it. You're in free practice. It's not
Yeah.
worth it.
Free
And he
practice too.
just
You have lots of time.
it's like one of those things where you're in the mall and you kind of somebody's in your way and you're back and
Yeah.
forth. You're like, I don't know which way I'm gonna go, so you just hit each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which is it's rare to see him clip the wall or, crash like that. So there was that. And then Bierman, I don't know if it was I think it was Oscars, because Oscars wasn't a red flag, was it? Or was that
Oscars
just
might
a
have been.
yellow?
No, I can't remember whose it was. It might have been because he was in the middle of the track.
Or no, it was a red flag because
Yeah,
that's when Bierman overtook Sainz.
he overtakes him under
During
a
the
red
red flag. Yeah. And then wasn't going to be too good for him because he ended up getting a 10-place grid penalty
Yeah.
for whatever he qualified. It would be 10 places back
Yeah.
for the race, which kind of sucked for him.
And Stroll gets a 1-place grid penalty for causing a collision.
Yeah. So already we're off to a people are just being pushed back further.
Again, everything
further.
in a blender. Yeah.
Yeah. And then FP3, or I think it was FP1 actually, where we see, I forgot to mention this, Lewis kind of fly over, like car goes airborne.
He comes out of the pool section, I believe.
Yeah.
And it's always that iconic kind of camera angle where they watch to see how close they come to that barrier. And he clips it and has to go right over the curb. And he's all four wheels off, and that can't feel good on your spine and your tailbone.
No. At 40 something years old, probably doesn't feel too good. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so Ferrari kind of involved with a lot of stuff this weekend. But I mean, the good thing for them is that the Ferraris kind of stayed in the top three despite all of these crashes, going airborne, red flags. Yeah. The Ferraris were, up there. And Charles actually was got first place in FP1,
FP3.
FP2, and FP3,
Well, he
which was the
should.
first. Yeah,
He knows the track.
yeah,
He's always
uh,
run well here, I think, in practice and qualifying.
yeah.
Just those specifically.
Yeah, yeah, not races other than last year, but again,
Yeah,
it's I mean, and we know where you start in Monaco is where you're
usually.
probably going to end, assuming somebody doesn't
Unless you're
kick
out
you
of the
out.
race. Yeah.
Yeah, or yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was kind of a good showing, I would say, for the Ferrari. First time that we're seeing them consistently in the free
Yeah.
practices. But again, free practice is just putting time, getting tire wear, figuring out what will work, what's not going to work. So, um, but yeah. And then we go into qualifying, and there is just, I mean, Q1, again, it's 20 cars on a small track. There was just impeding
Yeah.
everywhere. Like, everybody trying to get time, because it's a track known for red flags. You want to be getting a time in
Yeah.
before you're not waiting for the last 2 minutes to
No,
run.
because you never know when somebody's gonna
Right. And it
crash
could
out
be the
in a
end.
sensitive spot. Yeah.
Yeah. So lots of impeding. In Q1, Lewis was given information about Max being behind him. But he was told that Max wasn't on a flying lap.
Yeah.
Max was on a flying lap,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and Lewis, where they came out of going up the hill by the hotel, the casino. Lewis was, because he didn't think Max was flying, was on the racing line. Major impeding, but again, not totally his fault. Kind of like the Stroll scenario. He was
Just getting the
told
wrong
that,
information. Yeah.
yeah, he was told the wrong information. He was told that he was there. And Max, you could hear Lewis know immediately.
It was his
Like,
fault.
he
Yeah.
was like, you told me he wasn't flying.
Yeah.
And yeah, so he gets a, later
Three
on,
grid. Three
he
grid.
gets a 3 grid place penalty.
Yeah.
For the race,
which I mean, after qualifying, he goes right up to Max
yeah.
and says, "Sorry, but my bad."
yeah, totally. I mean, Max is losing it in the car per usual, and again,
well, at the moment when they come
yeah.
together, it's not
Yeah.
bad. He's like, "Yeah, whatever. I know you're gonna go behind. It's fine."
Yeah, I know it's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in the last seconds of Q1, we see Kimi Antonelli
On a flying lap, yeah.
On a flying lap.
Well,
crash.
no, was it the last second? Oh, was it the last seconds? No,
It was. The clock
yeah,
had
maybe
just
it was
come
like
down
30
to
seconds.
0.
Yeah.
So like the people that were on flying laps that hadn't made it to the pit lane because there was a yellow flag, and then red.
Again, specifically, we had Stroll was on a flying lap, I think, coming around.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Colapinto was already there and had already finished. I think Behrman was also one, and
Behrman
Bortoleto.
was one. Yeah.
Bortoleto did not.
No.
But
yeah.
Kimi's previous times were good enough.
Really good. Yeah.
To just try to get in at 15th at,
yeah,
I think it was 0.02 of a second quicker than Bortoleto. I mean, Bortoleto in that Sauber was in 16th.
Yeah.
Ahead of all these others.
Yeah. And I mean, Bortoleto actually, other than, again, it's Monaco, but he kind of had some good runs this weekend.
Yeah.
In free practice, in quali, he had some good times. Again, speed is reduced a little bit in Monaco, but a Hulkenberg in the other Sauber was running well. So, but yeah, I mean, Kimi makes it out of Q1, but we lose. Again, I hate to say this, but like kind of the usual suspects. We lose Bortoleto, Behrman, Gasly, Stroll, and Colapinto. Behrman then has that 10 grid place penalty. He's starting 17th, which 17th, just made him start last 20th.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was kind of Q1. Q2. What happened in Q2? So Antonelli's not starting, so it's only 14 drivers because he had damage to his car.
Yeah. So we're looking from 11 to 14. Other than the fact that, I mean, one thing is Yuki doesn't make it out of Q2. which is
Yes.
strange. I don't know how he
Yeah.
didn't make it out of Q2. I don't remember if
Yeah.
he had any kinds of issues. I don't think he did, because he did run 20 laps, which is the lowest of any other driver other than George Russell, who DNF'd. George
Oh yeah, I
crashes.
didn't set a time.
No, sorry, he didn't. He didn't crash. He lost power.
Lost power.
Yeah, so he's
In the
coming up
tunnel.
in the tunnel. Yeah,
In
and
the tunnel.
I believe it was a power unit failure. I
Hmm.
think they said. So
Yeah.
he's got nothing, and then he limps back around. No, he goes into the runoff area.
Yeah. Which with the marshals
No,
pushing
sorry, yeah,
and
none of the
him,
runoff. Yeah,
the marshals pushing him out of the tunnel with him steering. I'm
yeah,
assuming in like a neutral
yeah. He's
or
getting
something
out of
like
the
that.
car, and they're like, "No, you've got to get back in." And they tell him to
Yeah.
sit back in the car and steer,
Yeah.
and they're pushing it all the way down, and then hand it off to another set of marshals.
Yeah.
It's a great relay race.
Yeah.
Uh,
So he's out. So we've got both Mercedes out in
yeah,
14th and 15th, which
yeah,
really, really sucks for those two. And then, yeah, that was kind of the only thing in
Q2. Yeah,
Q2.
yeah, because that was early on in Q2, and everybody else
Yeah.
was able to get in several laps after that, and
Yeah.
yeah,
So we lost Sainz, Sonoda, Hulkenberg, Russell, and Antonelli.
yeah,
Um, the big shocker there, I guess, would be both Mercedes.
yeah,
And then where they were, it's not a shock that they could be 11th, but being 14th and 15th
yeah,
kind of sucked. But and then Q3, we see the McLarens run immediately. They go out in Q3 right away. They were
yeah.
just not
They want to
um
get times in. Yeah,
yeah, they were just not gonna do anything or waste any time. There's lots of it's kind of going back and forth for a while though. Charles, Verstappen, Norris, like between those three, like it's gonna be one of them. Piastri was thrown in there a little bit, but it
yeah.
was really like Charles looked on it
He
this
looked good. Yeah,
weekend. Again, like you said, he knows he knows this track. This is his home. Um, but I think in the end, the times were like Norris flat out, which we end up seeing in the race. He's just the McLaren's just too fast.
yeah.
Just
He
takes off.
he qualifies by a tenth of a second
Yeah.
over more than
Yeah.
Charles did. So it was
Yeah.
closer between all the other ones.
Yeah.
But I mean, the big shocker for me is, yes, it's because we have the Mercedes that are out in Q2, but we have both RBs in there, or Racing Bulls in there. We have
Yeah.
Ocon in there in a Haas. We
Yeah.
have uh, my goodness, Alonso. I was
Albon.
going to say Albon. No, but because the Williams have been looking pretty good lately.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess last week the Aston Martin looked really good too, but he's
Yeah.
up into 7th, not just finishing at 10th.
Yeah.
If
True.
had we had both Mercedes running through, maybe we would have pushed a couple of them out there.
Yeah.
But regardless,
They're
they're in
there.
the
They're
top 10. Yeah,
there.
they're in the top 10. They're
Yeah.
mixing it up in the middle, and they mix it up in the middle.
Yeah. And so we have the starting pole position is Lando with Leclerc behind, Piastri. Hamilton qualifies ahead of Verstappen, but because of that grid place penalty, he is pushed
He'll
back.
start in 7th. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Verstappen and Hadjar behind Ocon, Lawson, Albon, and Alonso. But yeah, I mean, going into kind of what we expected in the top 4 or 5,
Yeah.
these are just the teams that are been performing. So, yeah, kind of what was expected. But we go to race day, which was yesterday now.
It is.
78 laps. When they said 78, I was like, oh, I also forgot how short of a track this is and how
Yeah.
long of a race. I was like,
I know. I
oh,
kind of did the
here
same
we
thing. I looked at
go.
70 like, really? Was it this
Yeah.
last year? But obviously.
Yeah. And I mean, we just kind of get going right away. Lap 1, it's a good start for Lando. He doesn't really have Charles battling him or cutting across the way like a Max does.
Yeah.
But Lando with a bad lockup, and almost loses it. Almost goes into the barrier, right? Yeah, right there at the.
Yeah.
Could have taken them both out. And I mean, this is lap 1, and unfortunately, we lost Bortoleto into the wall, which created a yellow flag. So, and
we don't lose him. He just goes into the barrier. He restarts.
that's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
no, he reverses
It does go
and gets
green.
going
Yeah,
again. Yeah, yeah.
it does
He's
go
going
green.
to try because Kimmy takes his a position from him, and he immediately tries to take it back.
Yes.
No, sorry, he took the position from Kimmy, and Kimmy immediately goes to take it back, and he's got nowhere to go because he keeps fighting into it and goes into the gingerly into the wall.
It just, and that wall looked very padded.
It was soft. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It was those Tech
like,
Pro barriers. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, from there, we see a couple drivers take a cheeky pit stop because, they've got these 2 pit stops that they have to do. So you might as well take one now.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on what tire you started on, right? It would have made.
See, I get that. I get depending on what tire you started on, but if you have to do one, you got 78 laps. If you're on a medium, you can go to 2 hards. If you're on a hard, you could probably still do a medium and a hard. We saw, I mean, maybe we didn't. They should know from last year that depending on what type of tire compound they have, that they should be able to. Hard should probably go for a long, long time on these, and we find out that they do.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's worth it to take that pit stop right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because you get one free pit stop out of the way and we don't have to worry about anything else.
Yeah. Did they have to?
For Bortoletos?
No, I'm just trying to think. Don't they have to? They had to use all 3 tire compounds?
No. They had to use 2 different tire compounds, I believe, but they had to have 3 separate sets.
Yeah.
You couldn't take like an old hard and then back into the new, like go back to the hards that they had used or whatever it was. They'd use 3 different sets and 2 different tire compounds.
Yeah.
I believe I have that right.
Maybe. We'll hear about it. So we have a couple drivers come in, but Lando and Charles start to pull away from Piastri, who kind of looked like he was backing up Max, and then we realized, he was backing up Max.
Yeah.
To give Lando a little bit of space. And then, things kind of just set in where they're supposed to be, which we knew was going to happen. But you're hearing a lot of the strategy calls. You're hearing people trying to start to figure out what they're going to do. And it's just constant. I feel like last year, once we had the pit stops, which people did early pit stops last year as well, because I think it was last year when we had Ocon, Gasly.
Yeah, come together.
Yeah, so everybody took their free pit stop there, which I think was actually even a red flag, if I remember correctly. So they...
I can't remember that one.
I mean, they were able to just... You're not even losing any time because you're sitting in the pit lane. Yeah. And you can take your switch your tires at that point. But then lap 9, we see Gasly rear end Tsunoda. And quite badly. I'm surprised Tsunoda didn't have as much damage.
I don't think he really had any damage. He didn't even come for a tire change, I don't think, at that point.
No.
I think because Gasly had gone basically right over his tire. Yeah. So his wing underneath his tire and then the rest of his tire through his tire.
Yeah. Just completely ruined his front left tire. And he drove the car to the pits, putting debris everywhere. Part of his wing.
With a tire just flopping around.
Yeah.
I want to say like a good 600, 700 meters.
Yeah. It was crazy. And I mean, we've seen penalties for this before. But then we quickly hear that he doesn't have any brakes. So this is part of the reason why he can't it's not stop. That he doesn't want to stop. He cannot stop. Yeah. So much so that mechanics actually had to, I don't know if you heard this, but the mechanics actually had to stop the car.
He actually stops in front of Williams' garage.
Yeah.
And that's why the pit lane was closed at that point.
Yeah. Which was also kind of funny because it's like, oh, these drivers think there's going to be a yellow car or a VSC and there's going to be all this damage and here's another free pit stop for them. Yeah, no, because the pit lane is closed. Which again, a little bit of drama manufactured if the FIA was like, "Hey, we're just gonna do this, make it even that much harder for you
Yeah.
guys, no free pit stop." But again, it was because of all the damage. And then, we go back racing. There's laps, about lap 20, I think, of the front four, or the front runners, basically. Lando is the first to pit. He's the first one to come in. And then Piastri comes in the following lap to overtake Charles. They're trying to do like an undercut.
Yeah.
But Piastri has a slow stop.
Oh yeah, he was at
Which
3.2, 3.7, something like
I
that.
think it was 3.7.
He had a problem with the left driver's side, rear left.
Yeah.
Driver's side. It's a one-seater. Rear left tire.
Yeah. And I mean, this is the second week in a row that McLaren have had an issue with Oscar. Like Oscar in the pit lane. And not Oscar, just his tires, whatever.
His
the
pit,
changes.
whatever, yeah.
And then, so the lap after that is when we see Charles come in. And by this point, this is only lap 23, 24, somewhere in the mid 20s to 30s there. We're starting to see the back markers be lapped. And quite high up.
Yeah.
But that's because, you mentioned that we have two teams in particular pulling a interesting strategy.
Interesting move, yeah.
Yeah, and it's really because they're ruining the race for everybody and making everybody go slow, which is why we start to see
it was
overtake lapping.
We see you see Williams and you see Racing Bulls, and they happen to be within one position of each other. They're teammates, So you had Hadjar ahead of Lawson at one point, and then you also have Sainz ahead of Albon ahead of Sainz at another point. And it's Racing Bulls that starts the strategy off. So you see Liam Lawson really starting to back everybody off. So he's not going at racing speed. He's not challenging his teammate, but he's creating enough of a gap for his teammate. So his teammate can go in, take a pit stop, still come out ahead of Lawson. So he's creating a 28, 30-second gap, whatever they need for a good pit stop, come out ahead. Then he'll take his next pit stop and then go on. We see Williams take it a little bit further where they're doing the exact same thing, where Sainz is backing everybody up so much that Albon can take his 2 pit stops for free. Then at some point, he can take over. Sainz will go in, get his 2 pit stops for free, and then they'll just swap right back.
Yeah. Which I think they did it a little bit better than
Well,
RB.
they did it for both cars. They were able to do it for both cars.
Yeah. I think that's what made it better for me.
Yeah, Lawson was just like, okay, we know that Hadjar's probably running the best. We're going to give it to him and give him the points. And Williams is thinking, we're just going to get our 3 points as many points as we can.
Yeah. But. Yeah. And I mean, I know Martin Brundle mentioned that he had said and a couple of the team principals have kind of said, this is probably going to be a strategy. And they were kind of pointing fingers at Red Bull, saying Red Bull has 4 cars. And when Brundle said it to Christian Horner on the grid walk, Christian was pissed.
Yeah.
And you can't be pissed when you do have 2 namesake teams. Like, it's one thing, and they kind of said,
and everything gets run out of 2 people.
Yeah. So, and I mean, they did say, there are other teams that have a Mercedes engine or a Ferrari engine, but they're completely run differently. They're different entities. They just buy from Ferrari.
They're buying an engine.
Yeah, they're buying a product, and then they move along. And
the 2 teams don't have active communication between each other and meetings as to how these teams are run.
Yeah, and stake in the other team and being able to just pull up one driver from the other team and send the other one back. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, they do have a reserve driver that services 3 different teams. So
well, this is also true. But yeah, you
yeah,
like,
yeah. No,
yeah,
I know
it's
what you mean.
just it's just yeah. So I mean, did it help out? Mostly it was going to be helping out Max because Yuki wasn't really he was kind of
He wasn't a
behind all
factor.
of
He was behind even the other team. Yeah, so
yeah, he was behind the people that were being held up. So um lap 38, Alonso pulls off to retire the car. We don't really hear what until
yeah, we
he
don't
says
know.
the car's, and it sounds like he made the call because when you hear the radio, he said, we've got to retire the car. I'm pulling off there's smoke.
Yeah.
He didn't even wait for somebody to to
No, he
tell him.
pulls off and he gets out. Like, it's probably still in neutral. He's just, "I see you
Yeah,
later.
he's like,
I'm out."
okay.
Yeah.
And like he did say last weekend that he was the most unlucky driver
0
in
points still.
F1. Yeah. It's
Still has
his
another point. And the car's gotten better and he still has
yeah.
0 points.
Yeah. But where he retires is a he literally, it almost looks like he pulls into like a driveway to his home. He just pulls off and like you said, gets out of the car and just
He knew, he's like, I'm not letting anybody get an
no,
advantage off of me. Screw
no.
everybody else.
He probably
I'm gonna go
drove to
watch
he knew
right to a
exactly
yacht.
where. Yeah.
He drove right up to a yacht and he was like, I'm getting my Mai Tai and I'm just gonna watch you fuckers slog it out for the next
Yeah. He's like, I'm
40
done
laps, whatever.
over this.
Yeah.
Then we have George Russell with a very bizarre overtake, which I mean, I guess it's not really bizarre because there was strategy behind it.
It's not bizarre, but I mean, I think he was. It would be interesting to see. Yes, I believe Albon. So because of the train, I think George, he was very, very, very frustrated. First it was Carlos, then it was Albon. I think this was a calculated. He was complaining. He's driving erratically. He's slamming on his brakes. I mean, he's driving slowly. There's no rules against driving slowly. You don't have to keep a certain amount of pace. I mean, as long as you're not like literally going 60 and swerving all over the place. But you know, it seemed to me to be a very calculated move to try and get somebody else in trouble so you can keep the place.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can go ahead and explain it because I know you're going to.
No, I mean, it was just, and it's funny. One thing that I do want to say though is it's funny when you hear, especially someone like George. It's funny when you hear how he speaks about Albon, who's doing something, again, not illegal, just he's doing something in front of him that's annoying him.
Yeah.
Albon, who is his friend.
Yeah.
Versus
who bought
when
him
he
dinner
speaks
the other day because he impeded him.
Yeah. But who speaks when George speaks about somebody else in front of him, and it could be anybody else on track, and he's just, what's this fucking guy doing, or what's this bloke doing, or whatever. But like Albon, he's like, he's driving recklessly. What's he doing? What's he doing? Yeah. It's just so calm and frustrated, but so calm when it's your friend. But anyways, so yeah, they're going through a chicane, which I guess when you look at
they're coming out of the tunnel. Yeah. And into
they're coming out of into the chicane. And when you look at it I mean, it is a straight road. They make it a chicane. It's like, so they put up barriers, but it's still flat. So you could still just drive straight. And that's what George decides to do. And Albon goes around and he just goes straight over it.
It did look like Albon brakes later than he ever had before, or Carlos ever did before, and it did look like that. I'll give that to George, but it also looked like George was like, this is my opportunity. I'm going to say it's dangerous, and I'm just going to go straight through, and I'm taking the place.
I'm just going to do it. And I think pretty quickly the team is on the radio to George saying, give the penalty back, or give the spot back, or we're going to get a penalty.
It was right away.
And George is like, I'll take the penalty. I can't do this.
the way it looks, the way Martin Brundle had explained it on Sky Sports was that as long as he gives the place back before another turn, and I think it's like turn 12, that's like turn 8 and 9 or something like that.
Yeah.
As long as he gives the place back by that turn, it's fine. If he doesn't give the place back by that turn, then he's still going to get that penalty.
Yeah.
George says, "I'll take the 5 seconds." Right? Assuming it's
Thinking
going to be a 5-second
5 second
penalty.
penalty.
He finds out quickly that the stewards have a range of penalties depending on
Hmm.
how egregious this thing could be. Of
Yeah.
what they can give a 5 second, they can give a 10 second, they can give a drive-through, or they can um, issue a, oh my god, what's it called again?
Black
Stop and
and
go, a stop and
stop
go.
and go. Yeah.
So he actually has to come into the pit, stop, and then go. Um, very quickly, within like a couple laps, they give him a drive-through penalty. So it's effectively a 20-second penalty.
Yeah. Which
and he
sucks.
and when they tell him that, he says, "I prefer not to speak right now."
Again, so
Classic
calm.
George. Yeah,
So
classic George.
calm. I
Yeah,
prefer not to speak right now, which, I mean, it is what it is. But then we have a few laps later, Antonelli does the same thing.
and tell us,
However, his was more of a, he was about to crash and hit the wall. Like, he got too close to the
yeah,
wall.
he comes up in that little curb and
Yeah, and then the only way for him to go at that point is, he's locking up.
straight
He's
through.
got to go straight.
Yeah,
But he gives the spot back.
yeah.
I don't even think he actually got
His engineers
the
tell him
position.
to give it back, and
Yeah,
he did not get that back after,
no,
because then we still have Sainz, George, Albon,
yeah,
which we hear
yeah,
later. Williams wants to, near the end of the race, Williams
yeah,
wants to switch that place back. But the question is George going to give that place back? He hasn't had his second pit stop yet.
yeah.
If he doesn't, he gets disqualified. Either way, he stops. He's going to end up in 15th, 14th, whatever it's going to be. And it's, if he doesn't give that place, do they even have the opportunity to switch that back to give Albon the 9?
I mean, they end up having.
They end up doing it because
They
George
end up
does come
doing
in for a pit
it.
stop, which
Yeah,
makes no difference. I mean, if I want to be petty George, which I would have been at that point, if
yeah.
I want to be petty George, I'm not listening to my team. I'm not coming in
No,
and taking that extra pit stop because it's no points for me anyways. So I might just, a DQ doesn't make any difference.
no.
And then I don't allow them to switch back.
Yeah.
Although you
It.
are giving Williams an X. No, you're not giving Williams. You're giving the same amount of points. Never mind.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, being petty at that point, like Alonso. I'm just gonna pull off
You could.
wherever it's not gonna
I
help
mean, hey.
anybody
Yeah.
else. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, we see that, but it takes, I think it's about lap 60 before we see both of those Mercedes come in. Or at
Yeah.
least George, I think, was the first one to come in.
Yeah.
But it just was insane.
And then they have to do 2 pit stops.
And then they have to do 2 in the remaining, whatever, 18 laps
Yeah.
that they have. And then getting close, we start to see Max is in the lead at this
He's in
point
lead, yeah.
because he hasn't done his second pit stop.
Yeah.
And there was a window where Max could have gone in, but and he'd probably get third. But it was a very small window.
It would.
And
He would.
he had to make a
If
call
everything
quickly.
was perfect. Yeah. If everything was
Yeah.
going to go perfect, he would have come out probably 2/10, maybe 3/10 ahead of Oscar, which was
Yeah.
tight. That's
Yeah.
assuming Oscar doesn't have a good lap.
Right. And again, it's all about passing, which there's not a lot of passing. You just have to make strategy calls at this point. And Max decides to push on. And so at this point, it is Max, Lando, Charles,
and Piastri.
Oscar. Yeah. And Hamilton in 5th. But he's about
Almost a minute behind. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's 48
a
seconds. 40.
behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then we start to see Lando get into DRS with Max, but DRS in Monaco really doesn't mean much.
Doesn't make a difference. Yeah.
And we quickly realize that what Max is doing is he's trying to back Lando and Charles up into each other to have them fight, potentially make a mistake. They come together, they clip each other, whatever it is. They slow down. He
maybe
can
there's
go
a safety
off.
car. Maybe there's a red flag.
Yeah. Whether he wants them to crash and
No,
be
just
out,
enough. Just enough.
Just enough.
Just
Someone
enough.
lock up to block the other one, whatever it is. But it's smart, I think. It's
Sure.
smart because what he's and Martin Brundle and Crofty were talking about it. If Charles wins, if Charles gets ahead of Max or gets ahead of Lando, even it helps
Yeah.
Max in the drivers'
Yeah.
championship. So forcing them to make a mistake, forcing Lando to make a mistake, which we know he can often do,
Yeah. Or
in a crunch.
forcing them to
Yeah,
fight so that he's not Lando's not on his ass and he's
right.
worried
And
more
then
about defending than it
he
is.
can take off.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys worry, and then we'll do. We'll go ahead, and but it starts to brings Piastri close. Max is continuing to go longer and longer, and he still has this one pit stop. But I think we start to hear the math of it all.
Yeah.
If Max comes in, he ends up in. If he
Fourth.
goes in to get a pit stop, he goes into fourth. If he pits on the last lap, he's gonna go into fourth.
If he doesn't take it,
he's disqualified.
he's disqualified. Well, because we had assumed originally it was supposed to be, we thought it was supposed to be a 30-second if you don't take a pit stop. It's gonna be another 30-second if you don't take your second pit stop, so you could get up to a minute or whatever. So
Yeah.
everybody was assuming that he was going to take a 30-second penalty, which would still have put him in fourth, but rules were reviewed, and it's a DQ if you don't
Mid-race.
take that last.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a DQ if you don't take one. So
Yeah.
he's really just pushing for some kind of an event that would help him
Yeah.
take a free or cheap pit stop.
Yeah, because I mean, if he is able to get, and it doesn't even have to be with them, it could be anybody, but he was trying to force them into an accident. But if they were able to get a 78 laps, some sort of collision that caused a VSC or a red flag on lap 74, yes, they'd all be bunched up again. But Max gets his pit stop. He's got his pit stops there. He's going to start behind the safety car, and then he wins.
Yeah.
So, the risk made sense. Just like
or
the
even
risk
if it's
for George made sense.
even if it's a VSC, maybe he gets that pit stop where he still gets a podium. He still stays ahead of Oscar.
Right.
So
yeah,
it was worth the gamble.
It was, but you lap 77.
Yeah.
Still no
see
accident.
Peel off. Yeah.
He's like, okay, fine. I guess I'll come do my pit stop. Yeah, and then we see Lando kind of, once Max is out of the way, you see Lando take off, and there is absolutely no way that Ferrari could have thought he was going to catch him at all. So
at that point, he had another McLaren behind him, trying to get past.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I mean, that was not going to happen at all.
No.
And then we had poor Lewis, who's just wondering how far away he is because he can't see anybody at this point.
that's because he was
44 at that
40
time. 45
seconds, yeah. 45 seconds behind.
And he just wanted to know, am I over a minute behind?
Yeah. And his race engineer
was giving it some other stuff.
Yeah, and he's like, that's not what I asked you.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, Lewis, does it even matter? Does it matter?
At that point, you're in fifth.
Yeah.
You don't see anybody. You're going to end up in fifth. You don't have a chance. Just enjoy it. Enjoy it. It's not like you're not one of the cars that got lapped, because everybody else up until sixth got lapped.
Yeah.
And some of them twice.
Yes.
Up until, what did we say it was? 11th or something like that? Ninth. Up until ninth. Albon, who was in ninth in the points, was still lapped twice.
Crazy. I mean, yeah, Lewis ran his own race. Was there, I didn't hear, and I don't know if you've heard anything since, but was there an issue with his Ferrari? Because
as far as I knew, no.
I mean, 44 seconds behind is, considering nobody was backing him up.
As
you know
far,
what I mean?
Well, I don't know if he had any trouble getting through some of the the back markers. I know Lando at some point did, so I don't know if he also had issues with that. But as far as I had heard, there was nothing specifically with his car. I don't
Yeah.
hear him saying that he can't turn it, like he usually does,
Yeah.
or nothing.
There was actually, you mentioned the blue flags. There was a lot of drivers, especially the top four, that were lapping people. That people the blue flags weren't out for the back markers,
Well, when
which
you're
is
also
really
coming
messing up the
across,
leaders.
when you're coming across, trains of 5 and 6,
Yeah.
where else are you supposed to go? Are
Yeah.
all like you can't all come out over to the side and just let them pass you before it's all corners in Monaco. How
Yeah.
many you can get through one, then you got to go through two corners, and you can get through maybe another one or maybe
Yeah.
two, and then they still have to work those back markers still have to worry about everybody else that's behind them.
Right.
So,
And
uh,
it's not like emergency vehicle, like
yeah,
everybody move over.
yeah,
Like
it's
we
not
gotta
like
let these
Australia
ones
where we
through.
have 3 DRS zones where you can
Yeah.
easily pass a blue marker.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, Lando wins his first Monaco, which, you would look at his family and you would think it was his first race that he won. But I know it is Monaco. It's iconic.
Yeah,
But like his dad seemed to, and his mom really
his
seemed
mother.
to like, this was and maybe this is just the one that Lando has always wanted to win. Maybe it means
Yeah,
something different to him. He lives in Monaco. We know Charles lives there too, but Charles is from there. But there's always videos of Lando walking around driving his car in Monaco. So
yeah.
again, it just probably meant something, and it is an iconic race to win. So
I
and
think
then
there's only
Charles
like
second.
two or three drivers that don't live in Monaco.
Yeah,
I know Pierre does not.
Pierre does
I think
not.
Ocon does as well. The reason they go to Monaco, and I didn't realize this till a couple weeks ago, is I knew they go for the tax exemptions.
Yeah,
It's always when you're making millions of dollars, better live in Monaco.
yeah,
But French nationals still have to pay French tax,
yeah.
even if they live in Monaco. So it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense for them to go and pay the
No,
high price tag if you're still going
no.
to be being taxed the same. But anyways, this is a little,
Go live in the next city,
yeah,
right? Literally right there.
yeah,
But
yeah, across, yeah. You just
yeah,
go live in
Nice.
Nice. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I was thinking of.
But yeah, so that was, or I guess Charles got second, Oscar got third, Max got his fourth
Fourth
place,
place, yeah.
Lewis fifth, and then Hajar sixth. Is that what it was?
Hajar sixth, yes.
Which is his best finishing for the
I
season
believe
so
so,
far.
yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So far.
Which I mean, and I talked to you about this before. So driver of the day, when they do their driver of the day, I had a very different it was Charles, by the way.
Yeah.
You told me that because I
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't going to be the one. I thought it was going to be, so I
Yeah.
really lost interest. I don't know how Isaac Hajar wasn't a driver of the day.
No.
I mean, he drove a great race. He's in
He
a
had a good
car that has
quality.
no business being there. He had a great weekend.
Yeah.
Um, once you had Lewis and Lando, or not Lewis, Leclerc and Lando, where they weren't moving.
Yeah.
They drove a great race.
Yeah.
There's no, but I think for me, the driver of the day, and I know he was lapped, but it for me it was Isaac.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that. He had a good weekend, and he's driver of the day, works on the day, but
And it's a
he's
popularity
had a
contest.
good he's had a good couple of
Yeah.
race weekends recently. So I think it would be deserved of him, especially considering how he started in Australia with not actually starting.
Yeah.
I just thought, yeah, he had a great weekend. He did the backing up, which not a lot of drivers that it's their rookie year are very good at something like that.
Defending and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but he was great in F2. I mean, that's why he got called up. So they saw something in him.
Yeah. Especially
Um,
Monaco.
yeah, yeah. So, the only thing news wise, just did you see the beginning of the F2 race?
I did not. I
Which is
barely
also in
even
Monaco.
watched the
Oh,
F1 race.
anything. This is true. F2 first corner, 7 cars out.
No.
Yeah. 7 cars out in the first
Jeez.
corner. No, but I mean, it was pole position and second. And again, I don't know their names, unfortunately, who it was. But they just one took the corner, like kind of did what Lando did actually. Just took the corner too wide, locked up, and then went into the other one, and then everybody's so
Just
bunched up,
piled. Yeah.
just a pile, and then you could see people just like going through, like sorry about it, but yeah, so 7 cars out automatically, but
That sucks.
yeah. So yeah, I'm not really any news other than
I
that.
didn't have any news really.
No?
The only thing we talked about earlier was the F1 movie, but all the drivers got a little preview of it. They
Yeah,
got to watch it before the release.
yeah,
Um, all of them had very similar things to say about it, where, it's not really like, if you're expecting to be like real F1, probably
yeah,
not real F1. It's all focused on drama and everything. Obviously,
yeah,
it's a dramatic movie,
yeah,
uh, but not bad.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
think
I mean, we're
they were
going.
all, yeah, they were all given a script,
Yeah,
so this is what you have to say and what you can't say. But yeah, I mean, they said it was good.
yeah, it was alright. Yeah,
It was
two
good. So
notable two notable omissions from the night were Max and Lance,
yeah,
and obviously Max was at home racing because he wanted to spend
yeah,
time with his family, and Lance I guess just didn't want to come. I guess he'd rather just spend time on his yacht in Monaco, which
yeah.
is probably, it wasn't a mandatory event, so
Yeah, I would like to know if it's because he wasn't one of the drivers that they used a lot in in filming.
yeah. Well,
No,
I mean,
it's possible. We know his dad's in it. That he is his dad's
his dad's
in
in it. Yeah,
in
but
a
his dad looks like
trailer.
a menacing figure. Lance has got
Yeah,
like a face for radio. So,
yeah.
uh,
God, just like us.
also, I don't know like how often like does Lance really go to a lot of these events? He
True.
goes to the drivers' dinners at the end of the year, but other than
Yeah,
that, you don't really see him hanging
you
out with a
don't see
lot of the
him.
other drivers.
No, not at all.
I don't even see him do most of the events with his teammate.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. True. That's
maybe he
true.
just doesn't like it. Whatever.
Yeah.
But that's that.
Yeah. All right. Fresh set and dirty air.
Can I make my fresh set and my dirty air the same thing?
Sure. It's our
Sure.
podcast.
Okay. Great.
It's our
Uh,
podcast.
so fresh set executed great strategy by Williams and our Racing Bulls. I keep wanting to say RB or VCarb
Hmm.
for just executing to get maximum points. I think
Yeah.
it was they did it well.
Hmm.
They had a strategy. It worked out in their favor, or at least that strategy came to them. They made it work. Great. Awesome. My dirty air is the strategy they used
Yeah.
because it just made this race so boring.
Okay.
There was like, I was kind of into it in the last 10, just watching Max and Lewis, not Lewis, Max and
Lando and
Lando
Charles.
at the
Yeah.
end, and like, was there going to be something that happened? It didn't. But that's the only time I was really engaged, other than like lap one.
Yeah.
It was a strategy that, it was a a regulation that the FIA wanted to try, or F1 manager wanted to try to make it more exciting. It flopped. You know, it's not on them. They tried something, didn't work.
Yeah.
Don't bring it back next year, is my
No.
opinion. But
Yeah.
I'll give, those are my two. So you can go on
You're
with your
two.
two.
Okay.
Yeah.
So mine is, I don't know. I feel like I'm the only person in the world that didn't hate this Monaco.
And I feel
I
like you are the only person in the world that
Yeah,
didn't hate this
I
Monaco.
didn't hate it. I thought the strategy work was interesting, and people go in and they want a late safety car, and they wait and wait and wait and it never happens. And to me, that's not really a strategy when you go into a race like that. But I think based on what other teams were doing, which not really was strategy, it was just kind of what they were trying to figure out something
Yeah.
to do. It caused a lot of radio messages and a lot of thinking, and the commentators having to tell us what's going on, and seeing the brains of some of the drivers work, like George just being like, you know what, screw it, I'll take the penalty, not knowing it's
Yeah.
going to be a drive-through penalty. Lando or Max helping a driver 2 cars behind so that it helps him. Like, it just, there was a lot
Yeah.
of that kind of stuff. And I did really like the team play of Williams. And I think Williams has been doing a really good job all season so far of team play. So that's kind of my, like, I liked Monaco and I liked Williams' team play. That, like you said, Racing Bulls did the same thing. V-carb, whatever. They did
No,
the
it's racing
same
both now.
thing, but they got both. They got both drivers to benefit from the strategy.
Well, no, they both benefited on
Yeah.
racing bulls. I mean,
Oh yeah, that's true.
Lawson finished 8th.
That's true. Yeah.
So
Yeah. But um I think McLaren needs to learn on team play from those teams.
yeah,
They got to figure it out. But
yeah,
dirty air Mercedes. It's an obvious one, but
yeah.
I think they took the risk by keeping their drivers on the same strategy, which is a odd track for you have to have them on the exact same strategy.
Yeah. At least try something with the other one. If it doesn't work, at least you know.
You guys are 14th and 15th. Try
What are you gonna do? Yeah,
anything.
try something.
Like just start on softs. See how far the softs get you. Like just
Maybe that's
do
why George just said,
anything.
"Fuck it, I'm gonna go through it and I'll take the
Yeah.
penalty. We'll give it a shot."
Yeah. The other thing that it's not really a dirty air, but and maybe because we haven't heard it or his voice is just so iconic. Toto Wolff is the only team principal that I have heard that gets on the radio during a race. And not even when there's like team fighting or like the drivers
Yeah,
fighting.
yeah.
But like you can hear, you heard it this weekend. You heard George talking to his engineer, and then all of a sudden you hear Toto's voice, and it's like, I would not want to hear your voice
Yeah,
in the
like
middle of.
do I want to be a race engineer who's gonna be micromanaged like that? Like I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah,
Like you're just telling your driver that, or everybody that,
yeah,
okay, we know you guys don't listen to your engineer, so it's gonna come from dad now.
yeah, yeah. It
You
was
know?
really weird, and we've heard him do it with Lewis. We heard him do it.
Yeah.
Was it last year, and he wasn't even at the race,
Yeah,
and
he
he
was in
came in and
was
talked
it
to
Japan
George?
or something like that? Was it
Like,
Japan? Yeah. And he comes in. But that one was for an issue, I think. That one was
yes,
for a problem
but
and that
even
was specifically
still,
between and we see it. We see it with Horner, we see it with Zach.
yeah,
If there's some kind of an issue or, they're not listening to the engineers for whatever reason, they'll come on and be like, listen, this is coming from the top. That's what you're
yeah,
going to do. And that's it. And that's okay. But Toto's just, it's just too involved.
yeah.
It's a helicopter dad. That's it.
Honestly.
You know,
But yeah, I mean that was Monaco. A
that
lot
was,
more
that was Monaco.
a lot more in the
I honestly
qualifying and stuff.
didn't expect us to get through 56 minutes of talking about this crap, but we did.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, here we are.
here we
Here
are.
we are.
Yeah.
But we have one more of the triple header, which would be Spain, Barcelona,
Barcelona.
and that will be this coming weekend, which
And then we got 2
should be
weeks off.
exciting.
And
Yeah.
at home,
And
Canada,
then
not
at
home,
home.
but at home.
Yeah.
Kind of home.
Kind of
not
home. Yeah, so we will be back next week with another race review and then a little bit of a break from races. At least we'll be back, but
We'll be back.
but yeah, in the meantime, we will see you guys next week, and yeah,
Grab a fresh set.
bye.